The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with panic. Hundreds of different alien species sat in their special chairs, breathing different kinds of air and speaking through machines that changed their words into sounds others could understand. Today they were all afraid. Ambassador Veltar stood at the center of the huge room. She was a Zephyrian, which meant her skin was blue and see-through like colored glass. When she was scared or upset, lights would flash under her skin in different patterns. Right now, those lights were flashing very fast. "Friends of the Council," she said, her voice shaking. "Something terrible has happened. The Ravager swarm has eaten 17 of our worlds. They came with their bioships and took everything. Our people, our cities, even the air and water. Nothing is left." The room became very quiet. Everyone knew about the Ravagers, but they had always stayed far away on the edge of the galaxy. They were like space monsters that ate planets, but they usually only went after empty worlds where no one lived. Veltar pressed a button, and a big picture appeared in the air above everyone's heads. It showed what used to be beautiful planets with crystal cities and floating gardens. Now they were just dead rocks floating in space. "Look at this," Veltar said, pointing at the pictures. "This was the world of Kepler 442b just 3 months ago. 2 million Zephyrians lived there. They had farms that grew food in the air and schools where children learned to sing with light. The picture changed to show the same planet now. It looked like someone had taken a giant spoon and scraped off everything on the surface. No cities, no plants, no water. Just empty gray stone. The Ravagers are different now," said General Kethmore, another Zephyrian who had fought against the monsters. "They used to just take rocks and metals from dead planets. Now they hunt living beings. They seem to enjoy causing pain." A creature that looked like a giant bug with many eyes stood up. This was Speaker TX Hill, who led the council meetings. His voice sounded like clicking and buzzing, but the translation machines made it sound normal. "How did our armies do against them?" he asked, though he seemed to already know the answer would be bad. "We sent everything we had," General Kethmore replied. "The Hegemony Defense Fleet had 200 ships. The Ravagers destroyed them all in 4 hours. The Trilarian Star Guard tried to stop them at the Vega system. Their ships were turned into space dust. Even the Karathi war clans ran away after losing 3 of their biggest warships. This made everyone in the room very scared. The Karathi were famous fighters whose ancestors had conquered half the galaxy before they joined the Peaceful Council. If even they had run away, what hope did anyone else have? "We tried everything," Veltar continued. "Our best energy weapons barely scratched their ships. Our missiles just made them angry. The Ravagers' bioships can heal themselves faster than we can hurt them. And when they eat a planet, they make more ships from what they took. An alien that looked like a tree with many arms raised one of its branches. What do they want? Can we give them something to make them go away?" "They want everything," Veltar said sadly. "They eat planets and turn them into more Ravagers. Each world they destroy makes them stronger. At this rate, they will reach the heart of council space in less than a year." The room erupted in scared chatter. Hundreds of different voices in hundreds of different languages, all saying the same thing. They were doomed. Speaker the Axle clicked his mandibles loudly to get everyone's attention. "What options do we have? Are there any weapons or allies we have not tried?" Veltar's skin flashed from blue to deep purple, which meant she was very nervous about what she was going to say next. "There is one possibility," she said quietly, "but it is very dangerous. Maybe more dangerous than the Ravagers themselves." "What is it?" demanded a slug-like creature from the back of the room. Veltar took a deep breath of her special air. "The quarantined sector, Sol 3, the humans." The room became silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. It was the silence of people who had just heard something that scared them even more than the Ravagers. "The Deathworlders?" Speaker Thixel's voice was full of disgust and fear. "They have been locked away for good reasons. Their planet is a Class 12 hazard world. No civilized being can survive there for even a short time." He brought up pictures of Earth on the big display. To most of the aliens in the room, it looked like a nightmare world. The blue and green planet was constantly hit by deadly radiation from its yellow star. The gravity was so strong it would crush most council species. The air was full of poison gases that would kill them. Earthquakes and storms happened all the time. The whole planet seemed designed to murder anything that lived on it. "The beings that evolved on that world are unnatural," continued Speaker Theta Axel. "They breathe poison gas and drink acid rain. Their star tries to kill them with radiation every day, but they actually like to lie in it. They survive by eating other living creatures, and their entire planet is trying to kill them all the time." "Exactly," Veltar said. Who better to fight monsters than monsters themselves? The debate that followed was loud and angry. Most of the council members thought asking humans for help was crazy. They had been quarantined for 200 years because they were too dangerous to be around. Their own planet had tried to kill them for millions of years, so they had become very good at killing things back. Some aliens argued that humans were barely civilized. They had only recently stopped fighting wars with each other. They still ate meat from dead animals. They actually enjoyed putting poison in their bodies for fun. They lived on a world that would kill any normal person in minutes. But others pointed out that normal civilized species had already tried to stop the Ravagers and failed. Maybe it was time to try something that was not civilized at all. After 12 hours of arguing, the council finally voted. It was close, but the fear of the Ravagers was stronger than the fear of humans. They would send a message to Earth. The message probe was built with the strongest shields they had. It would have to travel through the deadly radiation around Earth's sun, and then somehow communicate with beings who might not even understand the concept of peace. As the probe launched toward the Sol system, Feltar wondered if they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They were asking the most dangerous predators in the known universe for help. But as more reports came in of worlds being eaten and fleets being destroyed, she realized they had no choice. The Ravagers had never lost a fight because no one had ever been crazy enough to fight the way they did. Maybe it was time to show them what real crazy looked like. The probe disappeared into hyperspace, carrying the galaxy's desperate plea to the death world called Earth. In a few days, they would learn if the humans would help them, or if they had just invited an even worse monster to the party. Captain Sarah Chen stood looking out the window of Luna Station, watching Earth turn slowly below her. The blue planet looked peaceful from space, but Sarah knew better. Every person who lived there had to be tough just to survive another day on the world that other aliens called a death world. "Captain," came a voice through her radio. "We're getting that weird signal again. It's been going on for 6 hours now." Sarah sighed. For the past few days, their deep space sensors had picked up something strange slowing down at the edge of their solar system. Now it was trying to talk to them. "Let me guess," Sarah said. "More math problems and number sequences." "No, ma'am. This time it's different. The computer says it's trying to learn our language. It's using really advanced math that we've never seen before." Sarah raised her eyebrows. That sounded like something way beyond Earth's technology. "Put it through to my brain computer. And get Admiral Reyes on the line." The translation came through in choppy, robot-like words that didn't quite fit together, right? "Hello, greeting respect to the Earth people beings of Sol 3. We represent the Galactic Council government of peaceful civilized species. Very terrible danger threatens all life sentience in this star region. We ask, plead, beg for meeting communication help." Admiral Miguel Reyes appeared as a glowing person in Sarah's office 20 minutes later. His old weathered face looked serious as he studied the message. "I've looked at everything, Captain," he said. "Either this is the biggest fake in human history or we just got contacted by aliens. What do you think, sir?" "The science checks out. That probe uses technology we don't understand, and the translation computers are way beyond anything we can build. Plus," he paused and brought up a star map. "Our long-range sensors are picking up energy signatures from huge space battles near Proxima Centauri. Something big is happening out there." Sarah looked at the data showing explosions and energy readings from the nearest star system. "What are your orders?" We answer, carefully, and we get ready for the possibility that we're about to learn we're not alone in the universe, and that whatever's out there is scary enough to make aliens desperate enough to call us for help. The message they sent back was simple and direct. Message received and understood. Tell us where to meet your ship. Warning, Earth ships will escort you. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction. 3 days later, an alien ship entered their solar system. The ship, called Harmony of Stars, looked like it was made of crystal and glass. It bent sunlight into rainbows as it moved. 4 human destroyers flew alongside it. The human ships looked ugly and brutal next to the pretty alien vessel, like steel wolves escorting a butterfly. Ambassador Veltar stood in her ship's meditation room, trying to calm herself as they approached Luna Station. Everything she had read about humans was disturbing. They had evolved on a world where the very air would kill most galactic life forms. The gravity would crush normal beings. The weather could destroy entire regions. And the creatures that lived there had developed tools and weapons before they learned to be nice to each other. Ambassador, her assistant Felnin whispered. The human station is launching more ships. They seem to be studying us. Through the crystal walls, Veltar could see the human ships. Unlike the smooth, curved ships that council races built, these were all sharp angles and armor plating. They were clearly built for war, not exploration. Their weapon ports were easy to see, and the way they moved reminded her of predators hunting prey. They agreed to meet with us, she told herself. That has to mean they want peace. When the airlocks finally connected and Ambassador Veltar stepped onto Luna Station, she was greeted by Captain Chen and several other humans in uniform. The humans were smaller than she had expected, but there was something unsettling about their forward-facing eyes and the way they moved with barely controlled energy. Welcome to Luna Station, Ambassador, Captain Chen said through a translation device. I'm Captain Sarah Chen, representing the United Earth Defense Force. We've prepared a secure meeting room where we can discuss your situation. As they walked through the station's corridors, Veltar noticed things that confirmed her people's fears about Deathworlders. The artificial gravity was crushing, nearly twice what most species could tolerate. The air pressure would be poisonous to most council races. Even the lighting was harsh, designed for creatures whose star bombarded their world with deadly radiation every day. But it was the humans themselves that were most disturbing. They moved like apex predators, their eyes constantly looking around for threats. Their bodies were clearly built for violence. When one of them laughed at something another said, Veltar saw teeth that were designed for tearing meat. Your message mentioned a great danger, Captain Chen said once they were seated in the meeting room. Please tell us about this threat. Veltar began to explain about the Ravager swarm, the destroyed worlds, and all the failed attempts to stop them. As she spoke, she watched the humans' faces, expecting to see fear or horror like she had seen from every other species. Instead, she saw something that chilled her to her crystalline core. Interest. The kind of predatory interest that suggested these Deathworlders were not seeing a desperate plea for help. They were seeing prey to hunt. These Ravagers, Captain Chen said, leaning forward, they're biological ships that can heal themselves? Yes, and they coordinate like a hive mind. They've never been defeated because they can adapt faster than we can hurt them. What about their weaknesses? Asked another human officer. They evolved in the outer rim where space is clean and planets are garden worlds. They're not used to extreme environments or toxic conditions. Sarah Chen smiled, and Veltar finally understood why humans had been quarantined. That smile was the expression of a predator that had just realized its prey was vulnerable. Ambassador, Chen said, your people have been fighting these creatures with energy weapons and missiles, trying to outgun something that heals faster than you can hurt it. Yes, but what else could we do? Humans don't fight by having better weapons than our enemies, Chen explained. We fight by making the environment itself into a weapon. The human captain stood up and walked to a window showing Earth below. Ambassador, for 200 years humanity has been alone in space. We've built weapons for threats we could only imagine. We've prepared for wars we hoped would never come. She turned back to face the alien diplomat. Now we learn that the galaxy is full of beautiful, peaceful life that's being threatened by monsters. For the first time in our species' history, we know exactly who the enemy is and exactly why they need to die. The predatory smile returned. We've been getting ready for this war our whole evolutionary history. We just didn't know it yet. As Captain Chen began explaining Earth's response plan, Veltar started to wonder if her people had made a terrible mistake. They had asked the galaxy's most dangerous predators for help against an unstoppable enemy. But as more reports came in from the Rim, more worlds consumed, more fleets destroyed, more civilizations falling to the endless hunger of the swarm, she realized that perhaps they had made the only choice that mattered. The Ravagers had never encountered prey that could bite back. They were about to learn what it felt like to be hunted by something more dangerous than themselves. When do we leave? Veltar asked. The fleet launches in 72 hours, Chen replied. And Ambassador? You might want to warn your people about our methods. We don't fight like civilized species. What do you mean? Captain Chen's smile became even more predatory. We fight like we evolved on a world that spends every day trying to kill us. For the first time since the Ravager crisis began, Veltar felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. The war room on Earth's biggest space defense platform was buzzing with activity. Humanity's best military minds were studying all the information the Zephyrians had given them about the Ravager swarm. Glowing pictures in the air showed star maps with the path of destruction, detailed scans of the biomechanical ships, and reports of how other alien armies had failed to stop them. General Patricia Voss stood in front of the gathered officers. She had special contact lenses that let her process information faster than normal human brains could handle. Ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at an enemy that has eaten 17 inhabited worlds in 6 months and destroyed the military forces of multiple spacefaring civilizations. She pointed to a floating picture of a Ravager bioship. The thing looked like a giant jellyfish crossed with a mechanical spider. Its see-through flesh had metal veins running through it, and its tentacles ended in tools designed for stripping planets bare of everything useful. According to our new alien friends, General Voss continued, these things reproduce by eating biomass and rare metals, then making new units from the processed materials. They're basically a self-copying military force that gets stronger with each victory. Admiral Reyes leaned forward in his chair. What about their fighting abilities? Impressive, replied Dr. James Harrison, the alien biology specialist who had been studying the Zephyrian data. Their ships are living organisms that can heal themselves. They can fix damage while fighting, adapt to new weapon types, and they coordinate through some kind of biological network that makes them nearly impossible to outsmart. Nearly impossible, repeated Colonel Maria Santos from the Space Marines. What are their weak points? Dr. Harrison brought up new displays. That's where it gets interesting. The Ravagers evolved on the edge of the galaxy, where stellar radiation is weak and planets tend to be garden worlds with stable, peaceful ecosystems. They're not built for extreme environments. A smile spread across General Voss's face. Explain. Their biomechanical systems can't handle rapid temperature changes, intense radiation, or certain chemical compounds that are common in high-energy environments. The Council races have been fighting them with energy weapons and missiles, trying to outshoot creatures that heal faster than they can be damaged. And humans would do this differently? Admiral Reyes asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Humans, Dr. Harrison said with growing excitement, evolved on a world that tries to kill everything on it every single day. We don't fight by having better guns than our enemies. We fight by turning the environment itself into a weapon. The briefing went on for hours, but the conclusion was clear. Humanity had advantages that no Council race had. They were adapted to deadly environments. Their technology was designed for survival rather than comfort, and their entire way of fighting was based on the idea that any battle would be against superior numbers with better equipment. 3 weeks later, Ambassador Veltar stood in the observation room of the human ship UES Nemesis, watching the Sol system get smaller behind them. The human fleet around them was unlike anything in Council records. 12 ships that looked more like flying weapons platforms than vessels designed for exploration or diplomacy. Captain Chen approached, wearing an environmental suit that made her look even more predatory than usual. We'll reach the edge of Ravager-controlled space in 72 hours, Ambassador. Are you certain your people are prepared for our methods? Veltar's translation device had trouble with the captain's tone. There was something in the human's voice that suggested anticipation rather than worry. Captain, I must ask, your people seem almost eager for this fight. Why? Sarah Chen looked out at the stars for a long moment before answering. Ambassador, for the past 2 centuries, humanity has been alone in space. We've expanded slowly, carefully, always wondering if we'd eventually meet other life. We've built weapons and defenses for threats we could only imagine. She turned to face the alien diplomat directly. Now we've learned that the galaxy is full of life. Beautiful, peaceful, civilized life that's being threatened by monsters. For the first time in our species' history, we know exactly who the enemy is and exactly why they need to be stopped. The human's predator smile sent a shiver through Veltar's crystalline body. We've been preparing for this war our entire evolutionary history. We just didn't know it yet. As the human fleet jumped into hyperspace, Veltar began to wonder if her people had made a terrible mistake. They had asked the galaxy's most dangerous predators for help against an unstoppable enemy. Meanwhile, in the ship's main laboratory, Dr. Harrison was working with a team of human scientists to prepare something the aliens would never have thought of. They called it environmental warfare. The beauty of it, Dr. Harrison explained to his team, is that we don't need to outgun them. We just need to make space itself toxic to their biological systems. They had been working around the clock to create weapons that no civilized species would ever consider using. Clouds of metallic particles that would clog biological filtration systems, chemical compounds that would react with organic fluids, radioactive materials that would interfere with biomechanical healing processes. Remember, Dr. Harrison said as they loaded the final canisters, these creatures evolved in clean space around quiet stars. They've never encountered an environment that fights back. In another part of the ship, Colonel Santos was briefing her Marines on the mission parameters. Listen up, people, she said to the assembled soldiers. We're not fighting an enemy that thinks like us. These things are hive-minded biological weapons that have never lost a fight. They don't fear death because they don't really understand it as individuals. She brought up tactical displays showing Ravager attack patterns, but they also don't understand something we take for granted: how to fight when the environment itself is trying to kill you. That's our advantage, the Marines nodded. Every human soldier was trained for combat in hostile environments. Vacuum, radiation, extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres. These were just normal working conditions for Earth's military. Our job is to make space as hostile as possible for these bioships, then hunt down anything that survives, Santos continued. We're not trying to defeat them in fair combat. We're trying to poison their environment and watch them die. As the human fleet traveled toward Ravager space, Ambassador Veltar spent time observing the crew. What she saw both fascinated and terrified her. These humans moved through their ship like it was the most natural thing in the world. But the conditions inside would have killed most council species within hours. The gravity was crushing, the air was corrosive, and the radiation levels from their power systems would have been lethal to normal galactic life. More disturbing was how they talked about the coming battle. They didn't discuss strategy or tactics like civilized military forces. Instead, they talked about hunting and poisoning and extermination like they were going after some kind of pest. Captain Chen, Veltar said during one of their daily briefings, "May I ask how your people learned to fight this way?" Sarah Chen looked thoughtful. "Ambassador, Earth is what you call a death world for a reason. For millions of years, everything on our planet has been trying to kill us. The weather, the geology, the other animals, even the plants are often toxic or dangerous." She gestured toward a display showing Earth's violent weather patterns, volcanic activity, and predatory ecosystems. We survived by learning that the environment isn't neutral. It's either helping you or killing you. So we learned to make it help us and hurt our enemies. And now you're bringing that knowledge to space? Captain Chen's smile was sharp. Ambassador, space is just another environment, and we're very good at making environments work for us. As they approached the edge of Ravager territory, long-range sensors began detecting the aftermath of recent battles. Debris fields where Council fleets had made their last stands. Dead worlds stripped of everything useful. Contact in 18 hours, reported the sensor officer. Captain Chen stood up. All hands prepare for combat operations. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for every peaceful civilization in the galaxy. Ambassador Veltar watched the humans prepare for battle and realized something that both thrilled and terrified her. These Deathworlders weren't just planning to defeat the Ravagers. They were planning to hunt them to extinction. The first battle happened in the Kepler 186 star system, where a Ravager harvesting fleet was slowly eating the atmosphere of what used to be a beautiful garden world. The Zephyrian watching ship. Peaceful Observer hung at the edge of the system, its crew staring in horrified fascination as 12 human vessels approached the alien swarm. I count 37 Ravager bioships, reported sensor operator Kilmar, his voice tight with worry. They range from small hunter-killers to 3 massive harvester queens, each the size of a small moon. The humans are outnumbered more than 3 to 1. Ambassador Veltar stood on the bridge, her skin flickering between hope and despair. Can we contact the human commander? Captain Chen is answering our call, Communications Officer Tinvel announced. The glowing image of the human captain appeared, and Veltar was struck again by the predatory intensity in those forward-facing eyes. Ambassador, we're beginning our attack run. I recommend you stay where you are. Things are about to get messy. Captain, surely you need to coordinate with our forces, plan a careful strategy. Sarah Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. Ambassador, with respect, your people have been planning careful strategies for 6 months. How has that worked out? Before Veltar could respond, the transmission cut. On the tactical display, the human ships were accelerating toward the Ravager swarm at speeds that should have been suicidal. The first surprise came when the lead human ship, Hughes Predator, opened fire while still outside normal weapons range. But instead of energy beams or missiles, the vessel launched what looked like metal containers that spread out in a wide pattern ahead of the Ravager formation. "What are those?" asked Kilmar. They got their answer moments later when the containers exploded, filling a huge volume of space with what looked like glittering dust. The lead Ravager bioships flew directly into the cloud and immediately began having convulsions. Scanning the dispersal pattern, Tinvel reported excitedly. "It's metallic particles suspended in an aerosol medium. Iron oxide, aluminum powder, and, by the eternal stars, they've weaponized rust." Dr. Fellman, the expedition's alien biology expert, suddenly understood. The Ravager's biomechanical systems depend on moisture and organic compounds for their healing processes. Iron oxide particles would clog their filtration systems, and aluminum would react with their biological fluids. On the display, the affected Ravager ships were losing their shape, their see-through flesh bubbling and changing color as the metallic contamination spread through their systems. But more importantly, they couldn't heal. Their regenerative abilities were overwhelmed trying to remove the foreign particles. That's when the real attack began. The human ships didn't try to dance around the larger Ravager vessels like Council fleets did. Instead, they dove straight through the swarm, weapons blazing. But their weapons weren't the elegant energy arrays or precision missiles used by civilized races. They were crude, brutal, and absolutely devastating to creatures adapted to clean space environments. UES Vengeance fired clusters of fragmentation bombs that filled volumes of space with white-hot metal shards. US Retribution deployed something the humans called thermite charges, devices that burned at temperatures hot enough to melt starship hulls and filled the vacuum with clouds of superheated metal vapor. But it was UES, Nemesis, that provided the most horrifying spectacle. The massive human battleship opened ports along its hull and began venting what appeared to be industrial waste. Clouds of radioactive particles, toxic chemical compounds, and biological agents that would have been lethal to most Council species. "They're poisoning space itself," whispered Felnan in awe and horror. The Ravagers, for the first time in recorded history, began to retreat. Their biomechanical systems, evolved in the clean vacuum of the galactic rim, couldn't cope with the toxic environment the humans had created. Ships that had regenerated from devastating energy weapon hits were dissolving under the assault of corrosive chemicals and radioactive contamination. "Incoming transmission from the human fleet," Tinvel announced. Captain Chen's image reappeared, her expression grim but satisfied. "Ambassador, we're pursuing the surviving Ravager ships. They're heading toward your people's core worlds, probably trying to get to clean space where they can heal." "Can you stop them?" Feltar asked. "We're going to do more than stop them," Chen replied. "We're going to follow them home." Over the next 6 hours, the human fleet demonstrated why their species had been quarantined as too dangerous for galactic civilization. They didn't just defeat the Ravagers, they hunted them through 3 star systems, using tactics that no civilized military would have considered. They drove the bioships into asteroid fields and detonated nuclear charges, creating storms of radioactive debris. They herded them toward gas giants and used chemical weapons to poison the atmospheric layers the creatures tried to hide in. When cornered Ravagers attempted to burrow into planetary surfaces to heal, the humans followed them down with bunkerbuster bombs filled with industrial acids. "I'm beginning to understand," Feltar said quietly as she watched the last Ravager Harvester Queen dissolve under a concentrated barrage of corrosive compounds, "why your people were considered too dangerous for galactic contact." But even as she said it, she felt a fierce surge of hope. For the first time in months, Ravager ships were running away instead of attacking. For the first time since the crisis began, an entire Ravager swarm had been not just defeated, but completely destroyed. The monsters had finally met something more monstrous than themselves. "Captain Chen," she said into the communicator, "the Galactic Council owes your species a debt that can never be repaid." The human captain's response was typically direct. "Ambassador, we're not done yet. We've got their scent now. Time to take this fight to their home territory." As the human fleet began jumping toward the galactic rim, Following the biotrails left by fleeing Ravager scouts, Veltar realized that the galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. A pack of Deathworld predators on the hunt. The battle reports that followed over the next 3 weeks were unlike anything in galactic military history. The humans didn't fight like any known species. They turned each engagement into an environmental disaster for the Ravagers. At the Proxima Centauri system, they used solar flares as weapons, driving Ravager bioships into areas of intense radiation that cooked their biological components. In the Wolf 359 system, they deployed clouds of nanoscale machines that ate through biomechanical hulls faster than the creatures could regenerate. At Barnard's star, they actually poisoned a gas giant's atmosphere and then drove an entire Ravager breeding colony into it, watching as thousands of bioships dissolved in the toxic clouds. "They're not just winning," Dr. Feldman reported to the Council after reviewing the battle data. "They're hunting the Ravagers to extinction. Every engagement results in 0 survivors from the Ravager side." The psychological impact on the swarm was immediate and devastating. For the first time in their species' history, the Ravagers began showing signs of fear. Ships that had fearlessly attacked superior numbers now fled at the first sign of human forces. But the humans weren't content to simply drive them away. They tracked down every fleeing bioship, followed every quantum trail, hunted down every last trace of Ravager presence in each system they liberated. "Your people," Ambassador Veltar said to Captain Chen during one of their daily briefings, "they fight like they take it personally." "We do," Chen replied simply. "These things have been eating civilizations full of people who never hurt anyone, people who built beautiful cities and wrote poetry and raised children and dreamed of exploring the stars." Her predator smile returned. "The Ravagers made a mistake when they decided to hunt people instead of just eating empty rocks. They made it personal." As the human fleet prepared for the final assault on the Ravager home system, Veltar realized that the galaxy was about to change forever. The age of peaceful expansion and civilized warfare was over. The Deathworlders were loose in the galaxy, and they were very, very angry. The heart of Ravager space lay in a stellar nursery, where young, violent stars pumped deadly radiation into clouds of cosmic dust and newborn planets. It was here, in conditions that would kill most galactic life within hours, that the swarm had built their main breeding colonies among the tumbling asteroids and forming worlds. For 3 weeks, the human fleet had tracked fleeing Ravager ships through increasingly hostile space, following biotrails and energy signatures deeper into the galactic rim. They had fought 17 separate battles, each one a masterclass in how to turn environmental hazards into weapons of war. Now, as the combined human task force, grown to 47 ships as Earth sent more resources to the campaign, hung at the edge of the Ravager home system, Captain Chen stood in the war room of the UES Retribution, studying tactical displays with her senior staff. "Environmental analysis shows radiation levels 8 times higher than Earth normal," reported Commander Jackson, the fleet's chief science officer. "Solar wind velocity is off the charts, and we're detecting chemical compositions in the stellar nursery that would be lethal to most known life forms." "Perfect," Admiral Reyes said with grim satisfaction. "The worse the environment, the more advantages we have over them." Ambassador Veltar, monitoring from the safety of her shielded observation ship at the system's edge, watched the human preparations with a mixture of admiration and terror. Over the past month, she had seen these Deathworlders do impossible things: turn asteroid fields into weapon platforms, use stellar radiation as a targeting system, and deploy chemical weapons that made entire regions of space uninhabitable for biomechanical life. "Contact," called the sensor operator. "Massive Ravager presence detected throughout the inner system." "I'm reading. By the stars, there are thousands of them." The tactical display filled with contacts, Ravager bioships ranging from the smallest hunter-killers to massive brood queens the size of Earth's moon. They were scattered among the asteroids and cosmic debris of the stellar nursery, feeding on raw materials and making new generations of the swarm. "Analysis suggests this is their primary breeding ground," Commander Jackson continued. "Destroy this facility, and we could set back their expansion by decades. Or," Admiral Reyes said quietly, "we could end it permanently." Captain Chen looked up from her tactical display. "Admiral? I've been studying Ravager biology with our science team," Reyes explained. These creatures are essentially one massive networked organism. They share genetic information, tactical data, even memories through their biological communication system. That network has made them nearly invincible, but it's also their greatest weakness. He brought up a new display showing the quantum biological signatures that connected the Ravager swarm. Every creature in their species is connected to this central breeding facility. If we can introduce the right kind of biological agent into their network. Understanding dawned on Captain Chen's face. A virus, a biological weapon that spreads through their communication system. Not just any virus, Reyes corrected, one designed specifically to interact with their biomechanical systems. Something that turns their greatest strength, their ability to share information and resources, into a weapon against them. Dr. Harrison's voice came through the intercom from the ship's laboratory. Admiral, I've finished the modification. The pathogen is based on Earth bacteria adapted for extreme radiation environments. Specifically, strains that feed on the kind of rare elements the Ravagers use for their biomechanical systems. Will it work? Chen asked. In this environment, with all this stellar radiation to accelerate mutation and spread, it should propagate through their network faster than their immune systems can adapt to it. Admiral Reyes looked around the war room at his staff, officers who had spent weeks watching the Ravagers consume entire civilizations, learning their patterns, studying their weaknesses. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an opportunity to not just defeat this enemy, but to ensure they never threaten galactic civilization again. The attack began at 0347 hours, Earth Standard Time. The human fleet didn't try to fight the thousands of Ravager vessels in normal combat. Instead, they implemented what would later be called the Death World Doctrine, using the hostile environment itself as their primary weapon. UES Predator and her escort ships swept through the outer asteroid field, deploying gravity mines that redirected cosmic debris into collision courses with Ravager breeding clusters. UES Nemesis used her massive industrial processors to turn asteroid materials into clouds of toxic particles that were then distributed throughout the stellar nursery by the natural solar wind. But the decisive blow came when UES Retribution, protected by heavy radiation shielding and environmental armor that no council race could match, penetrated deep into the inner system where the largest Ravager brood queens maintained their spawning pools. The delivery system was brutally simple, a single torpedo containing Dr. Harrison's engineered pathogen, designed to survive in the extreme radiation environment and spread through the Ravager's biological network. The effect was immediate and devastating. Within hours, Ravager bioships throughout the system began showing signs of system failure. Their biomechanical networks, designed to share resources and information across the entire swarm, became vectors for the human-engineered pathogen. The disease spread faster than their healing abilities could compensate, turning their regenerative abilities against them. From her observation point, Ambassador Veltar watched in awe as thousands of Ravager vessels simply dissolved. Ships that had seemed invincible just hours before were breaking apart as their biological components failed and their mechanical systems lost cohesion. The pathogen is spreading. Beyond this system, reported her science officer, with wonder in his voice. We're detecting similar failures in Ravager forces throughout the galactic rim. The entire network is compromised. But it was the human response to their victory that truly demonstrated why they had been quarantined from galactic civilization. They didn't celebrate. They didn't declare victory and go home. Instead, they spent the next 72 hours systematically hunting down every surviving Ravager organism in the system, ensuring that nothing escaped to potentially develop immunity to their biological weapon. They deployed cleaning crews to sterilize every asteroid and debris field where Ravager biomatter might survive. They even tracked down and eliminated the primitive proto-Ravager organisms that existed in the system's primordial soup. When it was over, the stellar nursery that had been the heart of the Ravager swarm was completely sterile, empty of all life except for the extremophil bacteria that the humans had introduced as a permanent defensive measure. Captain Chen, Ambassador Veltar said through the communication link, her voice filled with emotions that her translation device couldn't properly convey. Your species has done something that the combined fleets of 17 civilizations could not accomplish. You've eliminated the Ravager threat permanently. Sarah Chen's response was characteristically human, practical, and forward-looking. Ambassador, the immediate threat is over. But there are still infected systems that need to be cleaned up, and planets that need to be decontaminated. Earth is prepared to assist with that process. And after that? Veltar asked. What will your people do then? There was a long pause before Chen answered. The galaxy is a big place, Ambassador, and apparently it's full of civilizations that value peace over the ability to defend it. Someone needs to watch the borders, to make sure something like the Ravagers never happens again. As the human fleet began the long journey back toward civilized space, carrying with them the news that the Ravager threat had been permanently eliminated, Veltar realized that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. For thousands of years, the Council races had believed that civilization meant the absence of violence. That advancement meant moving away from the brutal realities of survival and conflict. The humans had proven them wrong. True civilization, it turned out, wasn't the absence of monsters. It was having monsters of your own who were loyal to something greater than themselves. The Ravagers had been the galaxy's nightmare made. The humans had shown them what nightmares feared, and now, for the first time in galactic history, the peaceful civilizations of the Council could sleep safely, knowing that somewhere on the rim, the Deathworlders were watching. The age of humanity had begun.